Hi, would you like to see inside my sketchbook? I've been really lucky and been away on a long trip to Hawaii, Australia, and Thailand. And along the way, I have done a few sketches in my book, and I thought I'd share them in case they might inspire you to do something similar when you next go on holiday. My name's Liz Chadderton. I'm a watercolour artist based in Berkshire, and usually each week I share a tip, trick, or technique that I wish someone had told me about when I started painting. But this week I thought I might share my travel sketchbook and see where that takes us. Let's start by looking what I actually took with me. I used this Etcher watercolour sketchbook. You might just see that it's got the little Etcher llama there. And I did a full review of this sketchbook before I went. And because it came with a white cotton cover, which I knew would be filthy, I painted it. And there's a film about that too. Obviously it was a koala because I was off to Australia. It stood up really well. The binding stood up well. Yeah, it's grubby, but that's because it got thrown in my rucksack and thrown in my handbag and generally misused. But it hasn't broken or fallen to pieces, which is fantastic. I did run out of paper, so I ended up in Bangkok finding this wonderful little art shop and bought a little pad of mixed media paper just so I could carry on doing my sketches. I'll tell you about that in a moment. So material wise, this is what I took. I took this little paint set, which is a Derwent paint set that I'd added a few extra pans in. So that's seen some action. And what else? And then, yeah, pens. Oh gosh, look, there's, what is that? Oh no, that is UK money. Good. I took a few Stabilo pens in black and brown. I took a few pigment fine liners. Those were black, and I happened to have a couple of sepia ones, so I took those. And then a couple of water brushes, and I did take a little spray. I saw that somewhere. Where is that? Anyway, I did take a little spray. Oh, there. Well, there's half of it, which I didn't use. So enough of the talking. Let's look at the sketches. I always find a clean, brand new sketchbook a bit intimidating. So how I like to sort of break the back of it is by sketching, say, the materials I'm going to take or potentially take. And it just means the book doesn't have to be perfect and it gets you going. Our first stop was in Hawaii. So again, I just found it quite hard to get going, I think, because I've been so busy coming up to this trip. So I ended up just doing a little sketch of our travel card. Holo is the Hawaiian transport system, which is brilliant. Hawaii is eye-wateringly expensive to visit. The one thing that is really reasonable are the buses, and we went everywhere by bus. And we laughed because our apartment was meant to have a sea view. Well, it did have a sea view, sandwiched between lots of high rises. So this was from the balcony and a tiny little bit of sea view. So that got me going. And I have written in this as well because I wanted it to be a bit of a diary. I'm a right sucker for a lighthouse. Love a lighthouse. We'd been out for this hike up Diamond Head, which is an extinct volcano just outside Waikiki, and saw the lighthouse. And I was like, oh, I want to paint a lighthouse. So I sat by a very hot road and painted the lighthouse. So all these sketches, I guess, would take 20 to 30 minutes, nothing longer than that, because I was really conscious not trying my husband's patience. Didn't think it was fair. It's his holiday as well as mine. So I tried to keep things for when maybe we're sitting having a coffee or whatever, and just keep it all sort of under control. But that was sketched by the side of the road. Not all these were sketched from life. So we went whale watching, and there was no way I was sketching on a boat. When we got back, we did see whales, weren't we lucky? We sort of a mum and its calf and tail flips and things. Put in some information because the whale watching we went on didn't have a lot of explanation about whale behaviour. These are humpback whales, so I looked things up because I was interested. This wasn't done from life either, but when we were out walking we saw these wonderful cardinals, and that was a Brazilian cardinal. This is the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which all the big film stars used to stay in. So Marilyn Monroe stayed there, and I think John Wayne, and who knows? It's called the Pink Palace, and I sat outside because it wasn't for the likes of me sketching that. So that's all I've got from Hawaii. Moved on to Australia and flew into Sydney. Next day we went straight out by train to go and visit friends, and our train broke down, so that gave me a good opportunity. We were in Central Station, the doors wouldn't shut, so I could sketch Central Station. But the friends we did visit took us all around a place called Port Stephens, which was beautiful, and Chris is an art friend, and we sat and sketched the scene together. For one, there were pelicans, which is so exciting, and this was rather a boring, rather poor sketch I'd done of the pelican, so I tried to jazz it up a bit with the writing. Then we went on a bit of a road trip, and this was quite funny because we'd booked using booking.com or whatever a motel called the Big Windmill, and we didn't really think about it, and we were like, oh, I wonder if we'll be able to spot where it is as you're getting near and following the sat nav. And it was like, yeah, I think I can spot it, because it literally had a full-size windmill built outside it, which made us laugh. So that was done from life. And this was done from photo. We saw these lace monitor lizards, but I was too busy oohing and ahhing over them. We visited a place called Fraser Island, which is the biggest sand island in the world. And the wheel literally fell off our bus. Well, the tyre fell off and we went along on the hub. So we had to be rescued, which gave me the opportunity to sit and do a little sketching. This was very typical faded glory of a motel, Criterion and Rockhampton, and again all these famous people had allegedly stayed here. Dame Nellie Melba and Sir Don Bradman and all this. And outside it looked amazing, and you got inside and you thought, they hadn't decorated since those people had stayed here. It was definitely stuck in the 70s. You sort of stuck to the carpet as you walked across. However, I really enjoyed sitting and sketching this. And we went for walks and we went to waterfalls, and this was a swimming hole, and I guess this was probably 10-15 meters high, and while we were there someone jumped off the top, dived off the top, not jumped in another way, and that was quite scary, but they were fine. Townsville, this was a view for us, we were waiting for some food. So those are all done from life, but these were done from photos. Love the rainbow lorikeets, they were just gorgeous. And this was actually a statue. We'd seen turtles, but it was a statue, and I did it from that. And then we got further up north into Queensland, and we saw a cassowary. They're like living dinosaurs, and there's only 4,000 left in the world, and we actually saw one. So this was done afterwards, and again I put some facts in because I'm really interested in understanding the creatures. So that was such a thrill. I've used pen and wash throughout because it can be really quick to do. Say all these are 20-30 minutes. This is in Cairns, and the building's called the Riley. It's a hotel. So in this one, I put colour on first and then put a bit of pen detail. So that was a really quick one to do because it was boiling hot. We went on this boat and we got there early, and I'd started to draw it, and then we all got on board. So I had to finish it off later from a photo. So that's a bit of mix. And then we went down to Adelaide. We flew down to Adelaide after our drives. And this was the home of Hans Huyssen. very famous Australian artist, and I am ashamed to say I knew nothing about. So I know a lot more now. Also in Adelaide, I managed to meet up with the Adelaide Urban Sketchers, and we went to sketch these lovely sort of Victorian cottages. And that was just so nice to meet up with other artists and just see what they got up to, and that was brilliant fun. So I had lovely little meet up with them. And I told you I like lighthouses. So this one was in Kingston, which again is South Australia, and just sat and did that on a very stormy day. Australian fairy wrens are just gorgeous, and they have such brilliant names. So there is the superb fairy wren, the splendid fairy wren, the lovely fairy wren, and that's their official name. I would have very limited colours and didn't have a bright enough blue to do them justice, but they were fun. I like this page. This was a hotel we stayed in with the most amazing tree by it. Love that tree. Unfortunately, apparently it's going to all be developed, and they've got to keep this hotel because it's a heritage one, but they are going to put this big monstrosity behind, which is such a shame. All this again, it's pen and wash, so it was a bit more detailed drawing, and then watercolour on top. And then we flew off to Sydney, and I fulfilled an ambition to sit at Sydney Harbour on Circular Quay and to sketch the Opera House. And that was so exciting. If you're interested, I did do a sketch from photographs before we left of the Opera House, so I'll put a link to that film as well. And I should actually find it and compare what it was like from life as opposed to from a photo. And I managed to meet up with another artist, which was lovely, and he suggested meeting in Wendy's Secret Garden, which is this lovely lush garden with views over Lavender Bay and Sydney Harbour Bridge, and that was really so nice. It was really calm and beautiful, and somewhere I wouldn't have known about or wouldn't have gone to if I hadn't met up with another artist. We started to work our way back home and stopped off in Bangkok, so we went to the Grand Palace, and I was trying to capture some of that colour and energy of that. And I love all the Garudas, the mythical birds with the snake that you see everywhere. And I ran out of space. So that's when I found my little art shop. And they came up with pyramid mixed media paper. It says the paper is from Italy. So it's a really nice weight because it's 400 grams, but the paper is horrible. So it's rough. I did this drawing of the Rama the 8th bridge and the river, and you can see how blodgy it went. But I worked out nice and quickly that if I turned it over, the back of the paper wasn't as bad. So this was at the Jim Thompson house, he was a silk merchant, and it's a museum full of beautiful artefacts, and I used the sepia ones there. And then this was outside the back of our hotel, all the different canals. Boy, did that stink. But this canal, even though it was utterly polluted, had so many fish in it. Fish you definitely would not eat, and they were gasping for air. It was just fascinating to look at the building, so I sat and sketched that while having a beer, I think. And then these two were our last day. We went to Ayutthaya, which is the old capital of Siam, and it was sort of sacked in the 1700s by the Burmese, and it's just ruins now, and it's like something out of Indiana Jones. I sat and sketched this, and there were bats in the middle of the day flying in and out of these ruined temples, so it was very atmospheric. And then that was the very last one I did on our travels, and actually I think it's probably one of my favourites. And the lovely thing, I was sitting sketching, and there was a party of school children, and they were all sketching too. I was going to say, the good thing about this Etcher sketchbook is it's got a little pocket at the back, So I've been able to keep things like tickets and maps and things which I may stick in or may just leave there. I hope you have enjoyed coming on my travels with me. And as I say, I'll do a little film with tips and thoughts about how you can do some sketching while you're on holiday, whether it's a short trip, a long trip, abroad or at home. Uh, it's just such a lovely way to engage with the place you are and to really look and see, if I take a snap of something, it's just a snap and it's gone. But if you sit and draw it, all the sights and the sounds and the smells get wedged in your brain. And when you look at it, you'll remember so much more about the place.